Okay, everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today I have another really cool review for you guys from the brand Baltany. A little about them. They were founded back in 2010, and their mission is pretty simple. They want to redesign classic, iconic timepieces using the latest watchmaking technology. Their goal is to create the most historically accurate homages ever, while maintaining the spirit of the original iconic timepieces, along with their modern interpretations. Now, in terms of type of watch, guys, I'd consider this a traveler's watch. Some key characteristics and design, when you're looking for something within the space. Of course, you're going to be looking for that GMT world timer functionality. Or so that you're just able to track multiple time zones with relative ease. This is the what a name. Affordable Retro GMT Automatic S6073AB, or Alpha Bravo, cream dial variation. Yeah, I mean, that's what happens when English is not necessarily your first language and you're naming these things. I'm sure this all has to do a lot with search engine optimization, but this is essentially Baltany's affordable yet impressive take on the Tudor Black Bay Pro. And the nice thing is you're even getting the option for a different color dial, which I really dig. You can get these for $219 direct on the stainless steel bracelet, or you can save a little bit of money and get it for $285 on the leather strap. I will say Baltany's actually proven to provide some pretty nice OEM leather straps. So normally I would default straight to the bracelet. In this case, similar, but if you're not a bracelet person, you're actually going to get a pretty decent strap, just so you know. With all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, guys, so of course you know what to expect in terms of the design, but let's talk about the dimensions. So 39 millimeters in diameter, 13 millimeters thick, and 48.5 millimeters lug to lug. This actually wears really nicely, and you guys can see, extremely impressive, like scarily impressive. I'm worried for the safety of the people that are making this watch, and they're able to make it so affordable. Like, that's how good it is. Like, it's almost like guilty levels of impressiveness. But I will say, because of how everything is so, and technology marches on, and the fit and the finish and the craftsmanship, things like this, it just happens. But I mean, look at how tight the fitment is on this end link. This is wild. That is, come on, this is just, I'm super impressed, blown. Like, it's not luxury level, in terms of, I would say there's something like, it's like if this had a little bit more articulation, if this was full, like if it had little extra bevels, things like that. But in terms of just like a very nice sports watch finish, this is like as nice as it can be without it venturing off into some crazy territories where you're starting to spend a lot more money. So very impressive. And I think Baltany in general is a bit underappreciated in terms of a lot of the affordable brands that are out there today. I mean, look at the dial, look at that little beveled edge there on the dial. I mean, there's just so many little details like that. The bevels on these lugs, the transition in between high polished and brushed. I mean, wow, it is quite impressive. And yeah, I just, $200, that's wild. $219 if you want to get it on bracelet, but again, under $200, $185 if you want to get it on a really cool leather strap. So more details. Sapphire crystal, guys. Double box domed. So when you do have it at any harsh angles, guess what? You're going to still be able to see. Look how sharp that handset is. You're not getting a bunch of distortion. It's really just going to be at the outer edges. So very clean, very legible. Also, there is an inner AR coating, which is great. You're getting that fixed 24-hour bezel. You're getting a screw down crown that is unsigned. Okay, yeah, they could have had it signed, but what are they going to put on it? A B? I think it's fine to not sign it. And then, although you can't see it, I will say the movement under this case back. First of all, I want to mention the case back isn't just oversimplified, they still have a little bit of a contour to it so that it will be a little bit rounder and elevated off of your wrist. Not in a bad way, but just so there's less sweatiness there. So I will say they've just gone and thought about so many of those little things that, you know, us as watch enthusiasts and watch collectors often think about. So the movement inside, of course, at this price point, like you would expect, is an automatic Seiko instrument NH34, which is a collar style GMT, which ultimately is going to be more convenient for most folks that aren't jet set flying around the world, because you're going to have a quick set date function and an independently adjustable GMT hand versus having that jumping local hour hand. This is going to have a 41-hour power reserve and beat at 3 Hertz or 21,600 vibrations per hour. In terms of the beat rate, the case back, again, solid and plain, so you can't see it, but again, not so plain to where they took a shortcut. They still put some effort into something that is just visually quite plain, but I think, you know, to the touch, they still went that extra mile. So big ups to Baltany for that. And also, big shout out to Baltany for sending this piece in and continuing to send in interesting pieces as they come along. And if there's anything I'm ever curious about, I just shoot them an email, and thankfully they support the channel. So thank you for that, Baltany. Now, getting into the dial, guys. Now, this is where it doesn't have the same level of course, something like the Tudor, but I mean, exponentially more expensive. You're going to get all the cool loom and all that. Like this loom, there's no 3D speciality to it, but it is applied very, very thickly, which is very, very cool. This matte cream dial has a really, really cool and different texture, like color to it. The texture is kind of satiny, but the color, it's hard to place because it's a cream dial. It falls under cream, but it just has kind of a warmer aspect to it, and I think it just is really almost taupe, like a very pale taupe, and I don't know, I just dig it. It's all printed on the dial, guys, but it's all done very cleanly, polished and tinted handset there, so you're going to get some nice legibility from that perspective. So it's going to have that little maybe like black chrome tint on those hands as we can kind of get the reflection going here. You guys can see that, because otherwise it's going to be reflecting off of the dark camera lens, and it's going to look dark, which is great because it's, you know, going to ultimately mean higher contrast. Now, the loom on here is going to be Swiss Superluminova Old Radium. Another nice feature, guys, 200 meters or 20 atmospheres of water resistance. That's awesome. You're also getting 20mm lugs, so if you did want to swap this out, you would have really your choice of different straps you could use. I think this would look great paired with a green strap, you know, just again to kind of get that outdoor kind of feel, give it that kind of expedition style, which I think is great. But at the same time, I'm a big steel bracelet guy, and this works for me. Solid links and end links, screw pin construction, guys, screw pins. That's wild. You're also going to get a fully milled clasp here. You can see even milled folding section, then milled body with milled triggers here in terms of the button actuation for the locking. Nicely signed, nicely beveled, and very clean. So with that said, let's actually get it on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay, guys, as you can see on my 7.5-inch wrist, I think this wears really beautifully. Check that out. Nice and thin. Although it does have a slab side, it's generally a thin mid case, guys. Check that out. It has a nice flow to it. And of course, if I get my wrist a bit too close to the camera lens, you're going to get some perspective distortion. It's going to make the watch appear larger than it actually is. So what I like to do is keep my wrist nice and low, and then just tighten up the frame as so, and check that out. So now you can get a more detailed look, but just add a bit of a true aspect ratio. And you can see this sits very nicely centered on my wrist. And even though it is on the larger side of average at 7.5 inches, it's also quite round and quite tall. So it's not like it's just really flat, wide, and accommodating to any old case shape. And I think this thing looks great, guys. Check it out. Look at the drape on that. Look at it just lays, it hugs the wrist nice enough, but you're still getting those clean. Look at the brushing, guys. Now, impressive polishing, that happens, But impressive brushing, guys, that's something that when I see it, I try to point it out because that's nice. And even look at the details on that female end link, nicely milled. They didn't just inscribe, kind of a 3-link separation. They actually built a little lip there. It's nice and sharp, well defined. My goodness, this is a looker, guys. And, for good reason. It's a good-looking watch, the Tudor Black Bay Pro. But, again, it's also quite thick. It's also quite expensive. So I totally understand why somebody would want something like this, especially if you do plan to maybe mix it up a little bit. Maybe throw it out on, different straps, single pass, nylon straps, hybrid straps, and really just have some fun with it. And really, take it out for those adventures. And you're actually going to go spelunking and you're worried about maybe destroying a multiple thousands of dollar worth watch. Instead, you can have something that's worth a couple $100 and really have a great time with it. So, I mean, this definitely has a lot of great vibes. I think it's very handsome. Of course, it lacks originality, but I will say, even in terms of its offerings, I think Baltany do a good job of just being pretty well curated in terms of the watches that they choose to be inspired by and offer. And then, I think they're quite creative when it comes to their packages and what they offer, and what are going to be those little tweaks and changes that they're going to. Yeah, this thing's awesome. So with that said, let's actually get it off the wrist, set up for some lume shots, the light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Yes, check out that lume. Very, very potent, very strong. Not quite blocky 3D, but definitely applied to a much thicker standard. And it shows, and I think it looks really great. And a lot of times, watches within this space, within that kind of more direct homage space, they'll choose to do things just good enough. So it's nice to see a brand really kind of take things up a notch. And one thing I always like to work in, of course, is going to be a bit of a low light transition, because you're always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it is nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. You guys can see this dial. Again, that tone, that shade, that kind of pale taupe, that warm, silvery creaminess to it. There's something that's different, and I dig it. Maybe I wouldn't choose it on my own, if I was designing the watch, but I tell you what, I'm really happy to stumble upon it. I think it looks really cool and definitely plays well off of the lume. Very cool to see the lume go from like green to almost like a day lume glow to, okay, yeah, there goes that cool kind of patina warmth that you might get from a more tropical style dial. It almost has that kind of like a hen's egg, right, where they're not quite white. They can be quite brownish in tone, but man, this looks really cool. I'm digging it, guys. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Check out the play on this satinization here. Really well done. And I mean, look at the gaps. Look at the fitment on the end link. This thing is just buttoned up. It's really well put together, and yeah, I'm really pleased and really pleasantly surprised. I shouldn't say I'm surprised. I mean, Baltany's kind of continued to just do Baltany things and over deliver, I should say, on expectations, especially at the price point. But guys, on the wrist, classic proportions with a clear lean towards that vintage inspired vibe, which of course, which you'll find from the watch that inspired this as well. In terms of model variants though, it's also available in a black dial option, as well as you can choose between bracelet or strap. In terms of comparable models, while the affordable GMT space is currently flourishing with options, this Baltany GMT is surprisingly well finished at its $200 price point. So for me, guys, the bottom line is it's almost concerning, like I said, how well this piece is executed at the price point. So while it lacks originality, it definitely does deliver a very competent and capable timepiece for the money, for not a lot of money at that. So with that said, let me know what you all think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please leave a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.